We have a special day to announce today. This is Robert Tanguay Day, and this is the Society's highest award for service. So this is the Career Service Award, and so we have to, in order to have a day, you need a proclamation, and there's only one person in the society who can do a proclamation, and that's our president. So it's my pleasure to invite to the podium President Santoro.
Thank you, Dad. Robert, I'm going to tell you, this is very formal. So I'm going to try to be as formal as I can be. Proclamation. So, whereas on August 15, 2017, a symposium will be held there is some more lies. So the formality goes. What will be held in honor for the achievement, the dedication, and the service of Dr. Robert Tanguay to the field of stress response research. Whereas Dr. Tanguay received his PhD in biochemistry from Université Laval and postdoctoral study at the Karolinska Institute, Stockholm, Sweden. Whereas Dr. Tanguay is a professor in the Department of Molecular Biology, Medical Biochemistry and Pathology, Université Laval, Quebec, Canada. Whereas Dr. Tanguay received in 1999 the China Bell Award from the governor of Hubei province, China, and in 2002 was made an honorary professor at Tanguay Medical College, Wuhan. Whereas Dr. Tanguay organized the inaugural Congress of the Cell Stress Society International in 2003, and again in 2011 in Quebec. Whereas Dr. Tanguay was twice president of the Cell Stress Society International and served 6 years on the Executive Council. Whereas Dr. Tanguay was elected in 2015 as Senior Fellow of the Cell Stress Society International in recognition of his long-standing dedication to our society and Cell Stress Chaperones journal. It results that I, Gabriella Santoro, current president of the Cell Stress Society International, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, August 15, 2017, the Robert Tanguay Day for all society members in recognition of Dr. Tanguay's many contributions to the field of stress response, and this is it, Robert?
Or here we are in Turku. Tack så mycket.
I think we need an official photo with you. A lot of photos, unfortunately.
But I better close with that,
Okay. You have, thank you.
Yes, so Robert has done so many things, and he's still doing things for the society. So I just wanted to show you this special issue. It's the July issue of Cell Stress Chaperones. It's about 130 pages. It's based on a workshop on the small HSP world that was held in Bergamo, Italy. And it was done and co-edited with Serena Carr. And I want to point it out for a couple of reasons, actually. And not only is Robert still active, but he's bringing along the next generation of really active, dedicated people on Serena. And we're playing our role, Helen and me we're playing our role in the editorial office, and Square Nature is playing their role, because Square Nature encourages that we do special issues, and unlike virtually all the other commercial publishers, this didn't cost the society $12,000, which is typically the going breakdown for special issue. They just simply slipped it into their manuscript flow and their ed manager online system, and you can talk to Robert, Serena, and see how easy it was to be an editor in these conditions. And that also reminds me of one more thing, and that is about 80% of the royalties of the journal go directly back into the society. And no other journal is doing that. And if you think it's not so much, in the 10 years since we've been a Springer and now a Springer Nature Journal, it's added up to about $500,000. So it's starting to add up to real money. And the thing I want to point out is that when you submit your journal, it's your right to submit. When you submit your manuscript, it's your right as a scientist, and it's one that we all cherish, to pick your journal. And there are a variety of reasons to pick journals, and it doesn't have to be the same reason, same journal every time. The thing that's unique about Cell Stress Chaperones, among other things, is that most of the money, most of the royalties that the journal earns comes back into societies. 80%, nobody's doing that. Every time you submit a manuscript, it doesn't matter whether it's to a nonprofit like the AAAS, the ASCP, or to a commercial publisher like Elsevier or Square Nature. Somebody's going to make money off of that manuscript, off of your work that's published. And it's going to be thousands of dollars that they can make. And it's not going to be you that directly gets that money, but you could directly put it back into the society every time you publish it, Cell Stress Chaperones. So enough said. On to Robert Tanguay Day. And let's see if I can work both of these machines at once. I want to start with just a sweet little story. I'm not carrying a full load of the slide sets here, so this is just brief slides. Robert told me this story quite a while ago. The 1982 Cold Spring Harbor meeting was terrifically important for this field because we really became a field at that point. And this is from the abstract right here. And you see we were dominated by the soft-fledged genetics, probably as we should be. I should have been at the time. And these are various people who were at the meeting. There's Alfred, Mrs. Watson, Miss Hussinger, Matt Gustafson, John Cookie, Michael Ashburner, and this group, which was just called the Canadian Contingent. And this is where I met Robert the first time. And I got to the event, and I got out our car in the parking lot, and there was this group. It was this group, actually, and they were standing with sandwiches and beers in their hands with the trunk open. And they had just arrived in this very small car, having driven down, I guess starting in Quebec, the sites where they got together and when they drove down. And the first thing they did was have a big picnic in the parking lot. And that's how I first got to know these folks. And this, of course, is Crucio Ritosa. And Robert told me this story later. He said, well, I went to my room, which in the cabin, resting on the bed. I may not get all the details right, as Grisha would say, but the mind takes walks after a long time. So, but anyway, it was Ferruccio, and they introduced each other, and they got to talking, and it couldn't have been a more perfect roommates because they're both, they both have strong opinions politically, and they're both socially committed, social activists. I could say revolutionary even. And so they talked about all those things. They talked about science, and they're both philosophers, and they're both artists. Ferruccio, a great sculptor, and Robert, a fantastic photographer. So they had much to talk about. Now the thing is, how did they get in the room together? Well, Robert figured this out because their posters were also next to one another in poster session. And Robert noticed that the name, when we get this back here, when we get this back here, yeah, the names, Tassi and Amato, they've been assigned by alphabetical order of the first author on the abstracts. Isn't that cool? And so they were sort of, there's a randomness in here. You know what I'm saying? There's a randomness that befits biology in general, and genetics in particular, in our field as well. So that's my little sweet story. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to do a couple of three testimonials to others. And Carla will start us off primarily on the conflict of the people.
Yeah, in fact, I have been asked to prepare some photos for you of the different congress. Of course, I didn't have them because I'm a little bit younger, much, but I'm a little bit younger. So I contacted Patrick Garrido. He was in holidays, so it was quite hard to have some pictures from him. But with the help of our friend and colleague Patrick Garrido, I was able to prepare some pictures for you. They are so nice, so funny, and I wanted you to comment them. So you can talk about that.
Well, Enrico is on the left. I'm on the right somewhere.
And Martin Vesbelbaum is in the center. I think we all have cigarettes. No, Martin has a cigarette. It's okay. It's, if people remember Ferruccio, when he was looking at the puffin in the lab, that had a cigarette in his hand. So that was normal. Now you have a phone. Next one is Laszlo. He's from St. Louis, yeah. And Candido is on the right sitting with a guy who's in Canada, Nash Gadam. And the little girl in between was a student of Jacques Landry, his first student. Shit. This is what we were doing in the pool at, I think in Budapest. Whenever one was working, yeah. This is Arrigo. It's always Arrigo. We should have the Arrigo Day. And it's a colleague of Antonio on the left. The girl on the right, I don't know.
Both of them were my postdocs.
Okay. In 1999, I had a tie. Shit. That's in China, in Wuhan. So that's the first group. Professor Ho, Jiang, sorry. And you have Andre again, you have Patrick, you have Jacques Landry with his wife then, and Bill, who wasn't changed at all. That's in 99 in China. This is in Budapest in 2007. Again, the three musketeers or whatever.
This was the spirit of Budapest.
Yeah. This is freezing at the Great Wall. Again, in the first meeting, we walked. Patrick walked up to the top there. I didn't. So, again, with Wu, Tan Chun Wu, who was supposed to be here on this slide, but he's not at the Great Wall. What's that? From Beijing to
Yeah,
Wuhan
that's
train.
the train trip.
Okay. Oh yes, yes.
Chinese train.
Yeah. Now the new Chinese train are much better.
No time to speak.
No. So this is at Patrick's place in the mountain. We're discussing about the insect. I was taking pictures of bugs on top of cows and manure in the field, and having, of course, red wine. That is.
You were on to resveratrol before Rick.
Oh yes, oh yeah. But I won't be there for the next 38 years like Rick was. This is with Tanaka, the Godfathers in Japan. So the beard is pretty. But still I read you around. This is I spent sabbatical in Patrick's lab in 1997 in Lyon, which was a nice place to be.
Well, you didn't comment that they're all ladies.
Oh, yeah. This is at
You
the
should not let them go when they call.
This is at the Keystone UCLA meeting in 1988 when I was skiing. Wow! At the Hammond. This was a free day. Believe me. This is the Get Out in Budapest. This is a fantastic pool. The water is radioactive. It's good. It's at 35 degrees.
Or Mises.
Oh, Mises, yes. This is again Cold Spring Harbor with Genevieve, my assistant, and the Mayo on the right there. Young the Mayo. And the meeting in Ravello was in a church upstairs. So one day you just walk down and go to the sea, and then you take the bus to go back up on a free day. That's pictures in the wild again, the flowers, the romantic side of it, and the other romantic side. Oh, that's at the party of 1985 Cold Spring Harbor meeting, and that's pretty late at night. This is with some of my first students. We went to the World Trade Center after Cold Spring Harbor, and the guy on the right was a postdoc in my lab, and the girl on the left was Louisa Kamahad, a PhD student, and the guy in the center has a dark beard. That's okay. Of course, you always want to have a picture with Rick. This is a Gordon. Is that a Gordon conference?
Yes, it is. That's
okay.
good. That's the one that.
I did remember when it was, but Rick hasn't changed.
Because he's Japanese.
We'll see that. So, I read.
Thank you, Carmen. That's great.
Thank you.
You may need to come. ticket and visa, and the border patrol officer looked at it and said they don't agree. Maybe it was his name, I don't know, but they wouldn't issue him a boarding pass. So I spoke to him from here to Wuhan, and he was upset, of course, and so he wishes us all enjoying, which is, I wish I knew what the Chinese character looked like, but apparently that's a very wonderful endeavor. So we have a surrogate for Wu, Bill Curry, my colleague. So Bill, you take this one.
So my turn gone? 1 second. Try that. All right. So testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're in here. All right. So I'm going to talk this time. I'm not let Robert talk, and just check here to make sure. So I'm not Wu to begin with. Okay? So everybody's clear on that. But I have Wu's slides, so I'm making this up as I go along, and if I get the odd detail wrong, you'll have to forgive me. And then I'm going to talk again after Wu for myself. So I think Wu has us talk in 2 parts, enjoying science and then enjoying life and friendship with Robert, and I think Robert has a lot to do with Wu working in science and enjoying life. And so I think this slide is telling us that Robert's travel to China has been funded by the World Bank since 1990. And we can all see where Robert is in the center here, and here's his wife, Nicole. I have no clue where Wu is in there. All right, so Robert visited Dai Steel in this city many times, and in fact, you'll see this again in my presentation. I went there with Robert. It's a steel plant, it's industrial, and these are some of the, I assume, some of the officials that were here, but there's one guy in here, this is Robert, but this is also Robert's son, Antoine. Antoine traveled with Robert a number of times to China, as did Nicole, his wife, also. Moving right along, Robert's first papers with Wu are shown here, and I think you'll notice on one of these, my name's in there also. This is from the first time I went to China, and I must have pressed the button again, because now the third paper that Robert has with Wu, this is going automatically. The third paper, in fact, Wu did a lot to, so that's the first 2 papers there of Wu with Robert, and I'll flip this one, and there's the third paper, and this one, Wu acknowledges that Robert, in fact, did a lot of the editing on this paper, revising it and rewriting it. It's the first paper Wu has in Cell Stress Chaperones, our journal. And at the bottom, there's a comment here about Robert won the Hubei Friendship Award. That still goes automatically. Unless this is a button on the side. Okay. So Robert has 3 covers on Cell Stress Chaperone, and they're all on quite different topics. And you can see here that environmental pollution and antibodies to HSPs. This was the first study that Wu and Robert did together, and I'm involved in that one. HSPs and aging, and HSP70 protection of DNA damage. The interesting thing here is all these photographs are from Robert's camera. All right, so moving right along here, this is Wu up here in the corner enjoying life, and Robert now has more than 50 papers with Wu. And of course, this is Robert over here. And Robert entertaining Wu in Quebec City, and Wu spent a number of months working with Wu in Quebec City. Wu visited Quebec City quite a few times. And you can see Robert here and Nicole. This is important because I think Robert has a lot to do with career development of Wu. Robert laid the foundation, I think, for Wu's success. Those are my words, not Wu's. Am I reasonably close on that, Robert? Oh, I think, yeah.
I would agree with that.
All right.
Wu is on the doorsteps of the Chinese academies.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
So one of the meetings that Wu was at was the one in Mendoza, and you can see there's interesting people here. There's Hightower in the middle. Here's Wu over here. I'm not sure who that guy is. This is Larry and Wu, and this is where I think Larry has a cigarette in his hand. That has something to do with chromosome puffs and a puff of smoke.
Oh, okay. Robert always carried a little pack of European cigarettes.
Yes.
Tempted me with that.
Moving
Didn't
along.
take much.
This was another meal in Mendoza, and you can see here everybody's enjoying beer, and Robert is in the picture here, right there. And there's a few other people in here that I might point out. There's Hightower there. I'm down there. Here's Ian Brown, Stuart Calderwood, Gabby Maltoff, and Alexander Aziz. And I think this is just another situation where somebody took a picture of Robert here, Jacques-Andre de Mayo, my dear wife, and moi. Hightower again, with a cigarette in his hand. And of course,
This was at the end of a long trip. We celebrated with Gandhi and a cigarette to end the trip. I didn't smoke every day, believe me. My cardiologist is looking at cigarettes.
and of course, you all see Robert in here. And this is more of Wu's stuff, and there's Wu and Hightower together, and De Mayo, and I'm not certain who that person is.
Yeah, she is she's very high official now in Beijing in science.
Okay.
Yeah, this was early in our careers, and both Wu and this lady had just gone up to the heights almost in Chinese science.
All right. And I think this is just one more photograph from that meeting, and this is again Hightower and Robert. And then there are at least 3 meetings that were held in China that were, I think, partly organized by Wu and with Robert, and those are listed here. And then the 7th Cell Stress Society International Congress in 2015. I think Wu had his hand in there also. So enjoying life and friendship, second part of Wu's talk. And here is, again, just touring in China.
On the Silk Road.
On the Silk
In
Road.
the
So
far west.
Wu, Hightower,
We were so far west in China, we ran out of Chinese.
Robert. This is Robert's son Antoine again, and I'm not sure who this is, but this is probably the guy.
That's our guy.
That's the guy.
Also a border policeman.
Yeah.
They weren't totally convinced we were there for tourism.
Keeping them in line.
He was wonderful though. He was a wonderful guy.
Larry, this is Robert again standing in China, we think.
Yes, I think it is. The grotto. Yeah. The 1,000 Buddha cave. Yeah.
So this is Patrick and Wu with a local, and there is stuff in behind that tells us where this is. I am not sure where. Moving along. This is Robert and Patrick Arrigo again, and they are somewhere where there's a big flower garden behind them.
China somewhere.
Yeah, in China somewhere. So something that I know about Wu is he loves to introduce visitors to all of his friends that he has in China. Wu has no end of friends in China. And so this is just an example of this where Robert is visiting some of Wu's Shandu classmates. And I'm not sure if this is from high school or from university, but there's some of Wu's classmates, and Wu is very good at taking people around all sorts of places in China. This is where Robert again visited Dai Steele, and here I see Robert with his son Antoine again.
Dai Steele is where they did their big environmental study, and I think it was one of the first such studies involving stress proteins between the United Canada.
I'll fill those details in a few minutes. Robert's visit to Wu's Shandu High School classmates. So this is another group of his friends that are here. And of course, every time you go to some of Wu's friends, you have to eat. And there's no end of food in China. And here we are visiting some of Wu's Yi Chang classmates, and I see Robert in the middle here, and there's Antoine again, his son. And this is then dinner with Wu's wife, and this is Wu's wife here. I see Antoine and Robert, and Larry, you wanted to say something?
I think it might be the next.
Okay.
Yeah, so notice, so this is Wu's daughter, Wu's wife and Wu's daughter, and look at the expression. We saw this all the time. So I'm a photographer as well, and when I'm with a great photographer like Robert, I always watch how they work. And Robert has a really great technique. There'll be a crowded square, and there'll be a bench, and he will have his camera in his case or behind him, and he will sit on the bench. He get his camera out very slowly, and he'll just sit there, and all of a sudden he's just part of this scene, and then he'll start photographing. And what I did notice also is the Chinese people always smiled when they saw him, and particularly the children. And here's a classic example. She can't take her eyes off of him. And well, finally we figured it out. And we figured that Robert looks like the Buddha. He looks like the happy Buddha. There are different kinds of Buddhas, but he looks like the happy Buddha. And so I said, Robert, we all get names. If you're in China long enough, you all get names. We all get names of one kind or another. My Chinese name is Gota. It's two characters. Go means high, and Ta means tower or pagoda. And the Chinese love that. High pagoda. They say, oh, that's very meaningful. With Robert, we thought, wow, you're the big smiling Buddha. And Robert said, but I'm not that big. And I said, oh, okay, well, then we'll make you show Buddha, small Buddha. And I wait a while, and finally it comes back, and his initials are now MB. And I said, what is that? And he said, well, I'm not small Buddha. I must be medium Buddha. And so, and that became mid-Buddha, translated from Quebec. Mid-Buddha. So he's called mid-Buddha now, and sometimes just MB. Okay.
So Robert hosts dinner and enjoyment for Wu, and this is Robert and his wife Nicole, and this is in their home in Quebec City. And this is the enjoyment part of that, where Wu was in the bathtub or in the swimming pool with Robert and his wife Nicole. And this is, again, where Robert made a road trip, and you'll see some of this in my stuff also. Robert likes to drive. He drives to Cold Spring Harbor from Quebec City. That's probably about a 12-hour drive. I know driving from Quebec to Halifax is also a 12-hour drive. And so I have no clue where they are here, but it's clearly a parking lot. But this is in my home in Halifax. And here, I think my wife, oops, let me back that up. This is where my wife is introducing Woo to corn on the cob, and of course Robert's right there. And this is part of Woo enjoying life with Robert. So Robert has a big part to play, I think, with Woo enjoying himself and other people enjoying, and Robert promoting other people. And the last slide here is Woo just saying thank you very much, Robert, and please continue enjoying with friends. Okay?
Excellent.
That's Woo's talk. Edited by me and presented by me, and I take no responsibility for any of that.
And now Bill will perform before our eyes a miraculous transformation into Bill Curry, the friend.
Yes, thank
Robert
you.
and Woo.
Thank you, Larry. And I have to thank our organizers, Leah, and the other organizers of this meeting. So thank you very much. And I also have to confess, I'm retired. I closed down my lab about 2 or 3 years ago, and I have nothing new to present, but the organizers were gracious enough to invite me to tell you about my good colleague, Robert Tanguay. So that's what I'm going to do. So that's my stuff there, and I still do have a post-retirement appointment. And the other thing you probably know is that I'm also one of the senior editors on Cell Stress Chaperones. So with that out of the way, I have here something I pulled off of Robert's CV. He was good enough to send it to me, and I reorganized it and I abbreviated it because Robert's CV is 70 pages long, and it has a lot of stuff in it. So I summarized it and I abbreviated it. You're going to see slides like this occasionally. The important thing here is down here, status. He had married in there. I just changed it. All right, moving right along. Training and studies. We've already heard a little bit about this. So he has his first degree in 63, a science degree in 66, all at University of Sherbrooke, goes to Laval. Has his PhD in 71. I'm still an undergraduate in my second year at that time. Robert also did 2 years at the Karolinska from 71 to 73. So this is Robert's first paper that I could find on heat shock. He has about 10 or 12 other papers before this on other topics, and I have to also tell you here, Robert is dynamic. Heat shock is only one of his areas. He has an entire second field of research on tyrosinemia and some of the genetic mutations that arise in Quebec because of the founder effect. Okay, I'm not going to say anything more about that, but heat shock is just one area of his science. This is his first paper, and this just happens to be in this journal here, Nature, and this is something where he is inducing, I think, HSP70 in Hieronymus and in the salivary gland. So I have to go sideways for just a minute, and I have to show you 4 slides about and introducing how I first came to meet Robert. And so, you know, that Nature paper of Robert's came out the year before this, and in 1980, I moved to finish my PhD, went to St. John's, Newfoundland, to do a postdoc with Fred White. Now, Larry mentioned Fred White yesterday about their collaborations and work together, and I joined Fred's lab, and then, so this is me over here when I'm a little younger. And so on my second day in Fred's lab, I'm reading this paper, and I want you to notice it's Hightower and Fred White. And they're talking about these inducible proteins in here. by tissue slice and by cannabinoid treated cells in culture. Cannabinoid is Larry's stuff, the brain slices are Fred White's stuff. And for comparison, so the third day in the lab, Fred comes in and says, "What experiment are you doing tomorrow?" And I had no clue. He said, "I have some suggestions." So these are the suggestions. And this has already been touched on briefly, but the one that was the most interesting for me, I'm a farmer. And as soon as he said this, make this in live animals, I said, I can do that. It took me about, 3 months, and we wrote up the paper, and I think the results are here. So this paper was in Science. This is my first T-Shock paper. And you'll see that this is the control expression of radio-labeled proteins in a control rat brain. This is what happens when you take the brain out and slice the brain and incubate it with sulfur-35 methionine for about 90 minutes. You get general suppression of all protein synthesis with the induced expression of one protein that you don't see here. This is what happened when I heat shocked the animal, raised the body temperature to 42 degrees for 15 minutes, wait 30 minutes, and radio label them. And this is what you get. Exactly the same thing. Now, enough of that. So, in 82, that paper that I just showed was 81. In 82, Fred White was invited to the first Cold Spring Harbor meeting, and this is where he first met Tanguay, and you've already seen this picture in the previous presentations of Carmen. So, this is the Canadian contingent enjoying lunch out of the back of the car. And 82, I'm in Fred White's lab, and Robert Tanguay invites me, the postdoc, and I think he really meant to invite Fred White to the Canadian Federation of Biological Societies meeting in Edmonton, Alberta. Fred was going to Cold Spring Harbor, so he thought it was only fair that maybe I should go to Edmonton. And of course, this is where I first met Robert. Robert was the organizer of the symposium that I talked in. I crossed paths with Robert again in 1985 at the second Cold Spring Harbor meeting, and in fact, that's the first Cold Spring Harbor meeting that I got to go to, even though some of my stuff is presented in the first meeting and it's in the yellow book. All right, so more about Robert Tanguay from his CV. What I have here is he's an assistant professor from 71 to 77, associate professor to 83. I started my academic position in 82 just for comparison. And from 83, he's a full professor at the University of Laval. So 1989 to 90, I actually spent a whole year living in Quebec City and enjoying it very much. And for those of you who know Quebec City, this is the Chateau Laurier. Chateau Frontenac in Quebec City. Laurier is in Ottawa. And so this is the old part of the city down here. Enough. So while I'm on sabbatical with Robert, he says, let's take a road trip and let's go and visit some labs. So we go to Buffalo, New York. This is where John's subject is, is at the time. He's still there. And we presented seminars there. We went on to Cleveland, Ohio. We went to London, Ontario, and then to Toronto. In London, Ontario, we were visiting other Canadian lab, Burr Atkinson, and several others there. Earl Noble and Marius Locke was from Earl Noble's lab. In Toronto, overnight, we go out for dinner and then we go to a bar. And Robert and I sit down at the end of the table. And then along come a bunch of women and they sit down beside us. And one of them pokes me and says, "Are you guys brothers?" Okay? So this starts this thing about brothers. Okay? Now, moving along. Robert, my brother, he convinced me that I needed to go to the CSSI meeting in Ravello, Italy. And so this is just a couple of pictures of us. and we're enjoying the scenery, and of course we're enjoying beer. My brother then convinced me that I needed also to accompany him on a road trip, this time to Japan and China. This was my first real long international experience, 5 weeks away. First 2 weeks were in Japan. And this was one of the meetings we actually went to in Kyushu in Japan. And this is Barbara Pola talking with Robert at the poster session. These are some girls again around Robert. I think at that same meeting, Robert always attracts women around him. We're out sightseeing, and this is one of the bridges near Kyushu with other people. So Jacques-André, Robert, not sure who this is, me, and I'm not sure who these women are. They're probably our guides. Then we went to Kyoto and we went to visit Kaz Nagata. I know Kaz is in here somewhere, and there he is over there. And so we gave talks there, and then we went from Kyoto University up to Tsukuba in north of Tokyo, and we went to the Fermentation Research Institute. That was 2 weeks worth of time in Japan. And from there, we then went to China. And we spent a few days in Beijing, and I saw this sign, and I thought, oh God, I gotta get Robert to stand right beside it. Hall of Mental Cultivation. All right, we toured, and so Robert's a fantastic tour guide. And so we toured in parts of Beijing that probably aren't even there anymore. And we met this old guy with this bicycle, and he had a whole lot of little tiny boxes with little tiny miniature things in it. And I bought one that was a little tiny fisherman, and I still have that little tiny ornament. So this is just touring in Beijing. Then we took the train, as you've seen before. And I think this is common. You go by train from Beijing down to Wuhan. Flying in Japan and China can be a little uneven at times. So the train is more reliable, and this is the middle. This is the middle of the day, and Robert is trying to sleep. He's pretending to sleep here. All right. Now we did go to Dai Steel again. This is my first trip to Dai Steel in Hubei province in China, and this is an amazing place. This is a walled city with everything in it, including a steel mill. And when I say steel mill, I mean everything, from the blast furnaces to the pouring of the steel to the railway that runs these huge ingots of steel around that the workers put their lunches on to heat up, to the rolling mills. This is a dirty, and there's also the coke ovens, so that produce the gas that they use to heat the ingots. This is a dirty, noisy, polluted place, and this is where our Chinese hosts, they had a whole crew, and I'll show you the crew in a minute or two, but a lot of support, and they took blood from 300 people, and we divided them into the office workers, they're the controls, and then we had the guys in the blast furnaces, we had the guys in the coke ovens, high carbon monoxide, we had the guys from the rolling mill, a lot of dirt and a lot of noise. So Robert here is getting his blood pressure taken. And here Robert is actually working. He has a pipette in his hand. Yeah. And it wasn't a wine glass either. And so this is again Robert, and here I have Wu. Now, at this time, this is 1992, Wu is a PhD student. Okay? And Wu is sitting here working right beside Robert. He was a physician with Mao Zedong. He is quite famous in Canada, and he's even more famous in China. And so I borrowed the name, and then I called it the Memorial Heat-Shock Lab, Tonji Medical University. This is all in crayon on a piece of paper. I gave it to Robert and said, translate this, so we did. So that's the second part of it. And then I think I must have given it to Wu or one of our Chinese colleagues, and they translated it again. The next day, this is what we find on the door to the lab when we came in. Okay, so they formalized it for the first time. Okay, moving along. This is the whole group that made the trip to Dye Steel on that expedition. And you can see Robert here in the middle. Now, I've already said Robert did a lot for the career development of Wu. Well, I think he also did a lot for my career development also. This was the first paper that came out, and this was actually in the Medical Journal of Tonji Medical University, and this was an English publication, and it is primarily Wu and his colleagues putting this together. There's another paper that came out in Cell Stress Chaperones, and this is a similar paper on that work, and I think this is the one that I did a lot of editing on. After 3 weeks in China, we then go back to Hong Kong, and we spend 3 days there touring around, and now you're getting the idea that Robert likes to be in the water. So just to add a little bit more from Robert's CV here, he is a prolific mentor. I'm one of the visiting scientists and professors in his lab, but he's had at least 11 visiting professors in his lab. He's had over 20 postdocs, 19 PhD students, 22 master's trainees, a whole pile of undergraduate trainees. Robert is a fantastic mentor of young people, including me and Wu. Robert likes doing road trips, and so this was a road trip in reverse. I made the road trip here to Quebec City, and this was one of the meetings that Robert had organized, and here you can see a bunch of lobsters and this wife Nicole. And this is just telling you that the experiment was a success, where we heat shocked the lobsters. And another road trip here for Robert and for me, and this is Cold Spring Harbor. This is where we pass each other again. And Andre Laszlo, Stuart Calderwood, me, Robert, and of course, Hightower Needs. Everybody knows him. Another meeting then was in Sydney, Australia, and we made the long trek down there. And so the Sydney Opera House, this is November 1997, and so the three of us met up in Sydney Airport. I flew with Robert from San Francisco to Sydney, then we met Robert in Sydney Airport, and Robert is insightful, but he can relax and he can enjoy, and so we shared an accommodation for about 3 more days, and we took this. So before you do anything in Sydney, you have to adjust to the time. As the guys from Australia know coming up here, it takes about 5 days to get your circadian rhythm changed over, but we did it in 3 days here. So the next one is that Robert wanted evidence that we were actually in Australia, and so there's a sign here, for sale, Australia's natural heritage. So another picture of Robert and Hightower. So one of the things we did was go up to Port Douglas, and this is a fair bit north, and this is to take the ferry boat out to the Great Barrier Reef, and these are great big catamarans. And the next thing is, this is where we went on that catamaran. So the Great Barrier Reef is all of these shallow spots in here. And some of you may have seen this before, but this is where these two guys, so this is Robert here, and this is Hightower, and I gotta get that a little closer so you can see it. And this is where Robert organizes the size of the life jackets for these two guys. Like, I couldn't believe that they could do such a thing. Okay, Robert's didn't fit, and Hightower's was 3 sizes too big. So
We didn't drown.
I did all the snorkeling and the swimming and whatever.
That'd be great fit.
So, prolific meeting organizer, but he can't organize besides the life jackets. So in his career, Robert has organized at least 11 congresses, 11 workshops in meetings, and symposium within meetings, 11 symposia. I know I've been at a few of these. Organizer of road trips, a whole lot. All right, so more meetings, 1989, 1990, just pictures of Robert, and I am supposed to know this guy's name, and it is Hitoshi Wash, okay, never mind. And at a meeting in Winnipeg in Canada, then here's Robert again enjoying life. And we've made other trips together to Seoul, Korea, and more to Wuhan, China, and moving along. So this is again on one of the trip to Wuhan, China. You fly through Beijing, and so this is the Forbidden City, and behind there's Mount Zedong there, and there is a whole lot of our colleagues here, and Wolfgang Schumann, Jacques Landry, Tanguay, Kirsten, Hightower, and Wu. And we're wandering around here. Here are the 3 of those gentlemen here. And we'll just keep going. Now, I can't remember if it was Robert or I snapped this picture. The truck is going by, the bus, we're all moving. And I looked out and I saw this and I thought, and we're in Beijing, and we had been to Wuhan, and we get served Beijing duck and Wuhan duck in both places. And I thought, oh my, this is before they become Beijing duck and Wuhan duck. They're all on this truck. And I was totally amazed that they're not falling off. That means they're all trapped there. And so this is just the group photograph. So this is why group photographs are important. And Robert is always in the front row, and there he is there. That's because he's this big. And Wu is right beside him. And of course, there's a whole lot of other people there that you can recognize. All right, so we toured Wu's lab again, and now our famous sign is up here, but now it's not on paper anymore. Now it's on some kind of plexiglass and screwed onto the wall.
Because it's a new and better lab.
It's a new and better lab, and they had to make a new and better sign.
Went from the basement to the 2nd floor.
Okay. So that's us from a while back. Moving along. So after one of those meetings, we made a river cruise up through the 3 gorges and up the Yangtze River on a river cruise, and on the cruise ship going up the river, the crew put on a fashion show for us, and this is some of the girls. And there's more of them here. Robert wanted his picture taken with the model, but we didn't have the courage to get up there and get his picture taken. But it was fun. And here we were on the ship's bridge with some of the captains, and so I'm going to point out the wrong one. The captain of the ship is this guy with the jacket on, but here's another captain here. There's another captain over there, that's Tanguay, and here's Arago, and you can see Laszlo, Jacques Landry, and of course Wu is standing in here also. Now we are moving along. Now we're into the next century and the 3rd International Workshop, and this is in Mendoza, Argentina, and there's a whole bunch of us sitting here, and again, here's Robert and Wu. Moving along to another meeting in Wuhan, and I see Robert there, and I'm here. Here's Patrick. And there's a whole lot of other people, and I see some of them here at the meeting. Here's Wu over here on the edge. Now Wu moved into another building with a new floor, and it's got the entire floor. And the last time I was there, Wu had 80 minus 70, minus 80 freezers full of blood samples. And so this is our famous sign here again in 3 official languages, Chinese, English, and French. And so that's telling you, the Chinese value the name within, and of course Robert. The next meeting that we're at is in Concepcion in Chile, and this is us out having a good time again and enjoying life, as we would say. And so Robert is here. There's DeMaio and Jacques-André and Kristen and my dear wife and me. 5th International Congress of Stress Response in 2011 in Quebec City, and another one not so long ago in Sheffield. And 2014, there's a meeting in Quebec City again. And Robert, you have to read this. This is a book edited now. So Robert's moving up in what he's doing, and he's editing books now with Hightower. This is very good. And now Wu has moved one more time, and he's still got these signs.
Half a building now.
It's a whole building. So when I said Robert is important in career development and Wu's career development, Wu's the dean of the occupational health and environmental stuff in Tanguay Medical School.
Yeah, and the vice dean of the entire university.
Yeah, dean, vice dean of the whole university. So there's our sign again. And that started out just being silly. And so this was last year in Alexandria, and Robert and I are together again. And so to summarize a little bit, I need to say something about Robert as a prolific talker and author. And this summarizes some of the stuff I pulled out of his CV. Oops, back up. And so here he has many, many invitations to talk at meetings. He has given at least 194 seminars. Took me a while to count all this stuff. Career publications so far, there's only 238 abstracts, cares, career citations. This took me a few minutes to add that up, 7,000 and more. So this is summarizing some of the highlights of Robert's career. Now, I've only hit the highlights here, but there's also pages of other stuff that I've skipped over, but I'm going to mention just one of them. He has a whole long list of honors, and one or two of them have already been mentioned by Carmen and by Larry, and in the proclamation. But one of the ones that hasn't been mentioned yet is 3 times in 2002, 2004, and 2009, Robert has been named as an ambassador for the province of Quebec by their tourism office. This is probably because he tells me this. These are the things he's really proud of. And so he's a prolific organizer, he's a prolific talker, so my conclusion has to be he's a highly influential academic and researcher. And so I need to just give the personal side here also. And so Robert is clearly a devoted husband. There's those sea-shot lobsters again in here. And this is Robert's family. He's also a devoted father. And so here you can see Robert can get dressed up. And you can take him out. And Nicole is doing this. This is Antoine, Robert and Nicole's son, and Antoine's wife, and this is Vivi. And this is Annie, this is Robert and Nicole's daughter. So this is a wedding. And the next slide is showing Robert with Vivi when she's a little bit younger than in the previous photograph. And Robert is teaching Vivi how to be a scientist, getting her started early. This is much more recent. This is, again, Robert being the devoted grandfather, and this is their second grandchild. This is Romaine, daughter of Antoine and his wife. And this then is almost the end of my presentation. And this is my colleague Robert Tanguay, my colleague, travel companion, and very good friend. And the conclusion is he's a pretty good brother. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you very much. And we've actually saved a few minutes because we know Robert likes to talk. So you have to talk a little. You don't have to talk very long.
That's gonna be it.
Thank you, Bill. Oh, I can use this one.
Before we go on, first, I'd like to thank Leon for giving me an excuse to come around here. In fact, we're celebrating two things. Nicole and I are celebrating our 50th anniversary of marriage. And the idea was to come here. She's never went back to Stockholm, so we're going to Stockholm. She never been to Tallinn, we're going to Tallinn, and then to Amsterdam, so it's, the meeting was a good excuse. So I thank Nicole for all her patience. She was only at one of there. She saw what it was. When we came to China, the first meal we had in 1990, there were 29 different plates. And nobody spoke English really, and there was a guy who was speaking German. And he was looking at me talking Michael, everything was Michael. It was a good experience. Then I went over 25 times to Wuhan, and some of the meetings there, I remember one, he showed the one in Yichang where we met at on the Yangtze River, and I went with him to negotiate because you come in with a foreigner in these days and you're an important person. So we negotiated with the hotel. We had rooms whose windows were showing you the river down there, and we negotiated for $20 a day for a room with all the meals, and then I added we need to have 4 beers per person per day. So that was a pretty interesting negotiation. Now, it's not my first time in Finland. I've been here before. I've been in Helsinki. I was in Helsinki in the 90s when there was a Chromosome conference. And that's actually the conference where Alex Warshawski disappeared from the Russian group and took a Celia Line boat because at the airport he would have been checked, and taking the boat to Sweden was nice, so he ended up at the US Embassy in Stockholm, and that was all fixed up before. It was quite interesting. Okay, then I'll try to push the right button.